You know what happened? But I do know this.
Know what?
I know that...
That what? Hi, welcome to UnScene. I'm Shamita Siva, but you can call me Sham. In this ongoing series, we'll be talking about the business of the film, TV and theatre scenes and how others make a living off their creative careers. In this show, Peter Carlos will talk to us about the difficulties that actors have faced during the pandemic, Susan Bourke and Faith Martin will chat about casting, and Charlotte Watson will tell us what's happening in the theatre scene. But first, the creator of the Docklands Film and TV Studios, Tim Barnett, is here to give us an insight into his world. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Shammy.
So, Tim, can you tell us a little bit about your history within the industry?
Yes, I've been in the industry since I was 18. Started off at working in television at Channel 7 as an editor, and then from there went into directing, producing television commercials and television programs. And then did that for about 10 years, 15 years, mainly television commercials and variety shows for Channel 9 and Channel 10 in those days, or Channel O in those days, and then to 10. And then I moved into the film world, took a step backwards and learned film assisting, operating old film cameras with the sprockets, you know.
Oh, so cool.
With some very, very great cinematographers, who I'm sure most of them are retired these days, but recognised, want to learn everything about film and how the industry works. So great cameramen, great directors, etc., and actors, and just work through that area.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was still directing commercials and things and programs, so I saw an opportunity to create there was a niche market in the industry that needed facilities to service advertising and television and film production companies. So I started a business up with that. That ended up becoming very successful as a duplicator of, we used to send commercials out to all the networks, and we used to send television programs and film projects all around the world to the American market and that. And then we went into equipment rentals.
Was that ComCopy?
That was a ComCopy group,
Right. Yeah.
And then we had a break off of part of that. We found it was during the technology change when digital was starting to come in, and people needed equipment, expensive equipment, which they couldn't afford, a lot of animators and things. So we started hiring our equipment out to them, which created a market. So that basically we started up Broadcast Rentals, and that became a large rental company for equipment, digital equipment and analogue equipment and everything for film, television, sport,
Nice.
things like that. And so I became a businessman, still with a little bit of directing going on, but
Yeah.
I just love the business side of the industry. So got
Yeah.
to meet a heap of people, travel the world, going to large events and things like that. And we sold the company in just before the 2000 Olympics, which we were supplying all the equipment for NBC, so they could do their American coverage. And I suppose got bored, retired, semi-retired, got bored,
Yeah.
and talking to some friends one night, decided some studios were needed. So I put together a team. We put together the studio project, pitched it to the government, and in the end, now it's Studio Docklands.
Yeah.
So we built that and ran that for till 2009, and so working in the film side of things, dealing a lot with Hollywood and that to bring films out here. So we're dealing with a lot of producers and that. And after that, stepped back from the world for a while and just enjoyed life, and now into producing stuff and helping and mentoring and helping people do things in the film industry and the television industry. And now
Nice.
with live streaming and all the technologies,
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Adapting. You've had such a long career path in so many different
Hence
fields.
the grey
as well.
hair, yeah.
It's just wise. It's a sign of wisdom. What do you think when setting up the Dockland Studios? What was your biggest challenge that you had come across?
Oh, everything.
Everything. Everything was a pain.
Well, I was working in an area I'd never worked in, and that's working with government at a high level. But we had a lot of support from the ministers who at the time were in charge. It was a Brumby pet project, so I think, and then dealing with, we had to raise funds for that because the government gave us a certain amount, but the operating company that ran the business had to have its own funds. So besides myself and a partner and I, we put in quite a lot of money to fund it, and then a few smaller shareholders. So we actually raised that money, but then as we're going along the building, we had it all designed, and there's another. I could go on for days about that, but go through the construction process and the design process, and then having to deal with government and getting approvals to do this and do that, and sitting there going, "Hang on, we've made these decisions. This is what we want. Oh, but it's our money you're spending." I said, "No, it's not. It's the public's money we're spending, and we're out of the industry. We know what we're doing."
Yeah.
So anyway, we got through all the rubbish, and it took about, I think it was an 18-month build from start to finish, and finally got them open. And then after that was dealing with government again after we were open, because we had to reach certain KPIs and things like that. But the world was changing. So we'd had a contract with the government. We owned the studios. The government loaned us the money. And so, but part of the loan was we had to do KPIs, perform to KPIs. Now, at that time, when we were building and everything was happening, there were lots of films coming from America and from around the world into Australia to be produced. So the market was very buoyant. The local market was slow, but the main reason why I wanted to build the studios was get the local industry working. Create employment opportunities for all sections of the industry, which it did. But then the international market started dropping off. So part of the challenge was to keep the studios going and cost effectively and still attract international production, but also service a local production. But local production started dropping off too. So all of a sudden, the world of production started slowing down. The Americans were keeping their content in America because they've got to travel a long way to come out here to film at number one. And when they're doing a film, they're stuck here for 6 to 18 months. So depending on who they are and what they're doing. So it means they've got to move themselves out here, and they're away from their families, or they bring their families with them. So it's a nomadic type of living to be at the high end of films. So you have to have a lot of encouragement to get people out here from America. So that was a challenge, just attracting films, attracting people in, trying to make it financially worthwhile for them, because in the end it still came down to the budget and what they could afford and how they did it and if they could achieve everything out there. But we have a very strong film and television industry as far as technically, technology-wise, and people.
Yeah.
We're one of the leaders in the world, in my opinion, in creativity in film and television. A lot of technology that they're using today in computer CGI, computer-generated images and things like that, were invented in Australia.
Oh, really?
In fact, a couple of friends of mine came up with most of the special effects systems, the software side, and sold it to companies in the US, because we can't market stuff here.
That's so true.
So
there is really like such a pool of creativity here, but not the actual. Yeah.
There's no. Well, that's because of such a small country population-wise. We don't attract the funding. It's very hard to get funding. So the only way to commercialise something is to take it overseas.
True.
And that's also the problem in getting back to probably budgets in films. Everybody here works probably more on, we need government funding to get a film up.
Yeah.
Right? America, it's a business. There's no government funding whatsoever. And we need to adopt that model here somehow.
Yes.
And people need to look outside the box and look at getting funding from other ways. Look, it's an investment. As long as, that's why if you do good content, you're going to get a financial return.
Yeah.
People will invest.
Yeah.
So the money's available.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Tim.
No
it was
problem.
lovely chatting with you. Recently, Susan Berg spoke to Faith Martin, who has had a long career in casting.
Thanks for joining us today, Faith.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Faith, tell us a bit about how you got involved in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's not an uncommon question. What gives you the right to think you're a good, you're a casting director? How did you arrive at that? And the answer to that is I feel really it was a calling in life. And the calling in life was pretty evident. So when somebody said, you should go over and meet this person, they're thinking of starting a casting department, every giant bell went off. And, of course, I said, that's it, that's me. I was looking for direction in life. I was looking for purpose, which I think we all look for. And I went over there and the man interviewed me and he said, well, thank you for coming. We're going to see quite a few people for this job. I said, no, it's my job. He said, yes, thank you for coming. We'll be in touch. So I rang him about 3 times, pretty well straight after each other, and he said, oh, for God's sake, take the job. So so that's one way, but actually then I realised later in life how the whole sequence of events in my life had led to that moment of certainty, and that was that when I was a very young child, I didn't have the family set up that I would have chosen to have for myself. Instead, I got an adopted kind of grandmother who loved films, and so she used to take me to 2 films a day sometimes, and there was no classification then, so we saw everything. And so all of that Hollywood of that early era was my family, my families. And so a lot of those stars, which have left a huge legacy, made a very big impression on me. And as had storytelling. So it's not just casting, it's characters, people who can inhabit characters and tell an amazing story.
And did you find yourself kind of getting involved in the lives of the people in film, and was it a bit of an escapism for you?
No, I didn't when I wasn't. Oh, well, I did in that some of the singers and dancers. I'd love to have danced like Ginger Rogers.
Wouldn't we
in
all?
my fantasy, I did. And maybe I'll still do that one day. But no, it was mainly when I was in there, I was transfixed and taken to their world, really. It just became so real to look at those characters. And then, of course, when we went anywhere publicly together, this lady and I would stare at people. I still do that. If you go to dinner with me, I've got my eye on the next table to hear what the story is that's going on over there. Because the minute I see some kind of either drama or something interesting going on, I want to know what's going
happening.
on.
Yeah.
Their behaviour,
So you have actually cast people in some really iconic films and television series. Tell us a bit about those.
Okay, well, I've had some really fortunate breaks in life where where certain clients have given me a great gift, and when I think back on that, I'm very grateful to them. And one was Baz Luhrmann, who I did Strictly Ballroom with, and of course, did I know that Strictly Ballroom was going to have the life that it had?
Yeah.
But I remember when Baz graduated, I kind of got in touch and asked him to come and see me, and I said, "What can I do for you?" Because I knew how majorly talented he was. He was a very majorly talented actor, and I think he always kind of remembered that. And so then we did, when we did Strictly Ballroom, there was no screen testing. He did screen testing probably on some major roles, but nothing in a casting studio in those days because there was no video people got screen tested in a big studio in those days, So with Russell and The Crossing, George Ogilvy, the director, wanted to run a workshop, and we had, I suppose, about 16 or 20 young people, different, all kind of interchanging and seeing how they work together. And Russell arrived at the door a little bit late, and George said, "Who's this?" And I said, "Oh, he's the next big thing." And he had a lot of talent, but he also had a lot of drive, fiercely intelligent, fiercely clear on what he wanted and where he was going, and all that drive came with it, all that certainty came with it. So it's no surprises that he's had a huge career and won numerous awards and is starting to direct more too.
So obviously for people that have a huge passion and they feel that that's their calling, then they should follow that path. What about for other people that are thinking that they'd like to get into the industry, that they would like to be an actor? What would you recommend or suggest is a way for them to break into the industry?
Well, say that would normally come with, say, a teenager. It rarely comes with an old... Well, it could come with an older person, but let's deal with a teenager. I usually say to them, look, get educated first. Don't cut short your education. Do that and enrich your imagination. Think on a bigger scale. And then, I say, where would you like to train? It does involve training. I mean, there's a natural instinct, there's a natural vehicle, a vessel, if you like, but within that, to the degree of expression and to the degree of being able to, there's techniques that can be learnt as well. So there are some amazing teachers in this world, and it's a case of who resonates for them, what inspires them, what performance has got them thinking, I want to go and do that.
And is there a certain kind of school or teacher or that you would recommend people to speak to, or how do you feel that people should find the person that's right for them? I
guess
field?
I think... in Australia, it used to be NIDA, and I'm not saying NIDA isn't any good now, but I'm just saying things go through an evolution as to who's running the school and the ideas and the plans. At the moment, Andrew Lewis, who's been running WAPA for many years, WAPA seems to be having a big impact. It doesn't mean to say that if you're talented and you go to NIDA, you're not going to get recognised. So it's really the individual and what they see for themselves. I ask people a lot, what do you see for you? If like you're asking me, what do they do? I say, well, what is it you see for yourself? What if you see yourself doing it? What is it? What's the ideal? And then from that, you can then chunk it down and come back and say, well, what I'd advise, particularly if it's someone, say, in their 50s, that they always dreamt of doing that, but they got married and had a family, could be male or female, then you say, well, what is it you want to achieve? What stories? And some people say, oh, I just want to do a few parts on Australian television. Others say, well, I'd like to be I want to work in America, I want to work in England.
So is it that thing, is it the kind of industry that you're never too old to get involved, it's never too late, you can start at any time?
It's never too late to really live your dreams. And so what comes incumbent with that is how much fantasy is in the dream and how much, how grounded it is. If it's fantasy, it's sometimes it's unrealistic. Do you know what I mean?
If it's more about the romantic side of it rather than the
Yes,
the work.
it's a sort of elevated, and it's going somewhere where they can't see the downsides of it. I mean, there's downsides to all of it. You've got to put a lot of yards in sometimes. You've got to believe in yourself. It's challenging to do all this, work this all out on your own, you know, and turn up and be brave enough to face 4 or 5 people. In America, if you get chosen to get recalled for a show, I remember talking to an actor who did an audition through me, and when he came back I said, how many people were in the room? He said 26 people watching him in the recall that he had to sort of not be shy of or not be nervous of. It's quite a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peter Carlos runs the Melbourne Actors Lab, a collective that studies the methods of Lee Strasberg. You may be more familiar with the term method acting. Hi, Peter.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you.
So what can you tell us about the Melbourne Actors Lab?
I moved back here like 10 years ago because I was born here, but I went to LA and I stayed there for 20 years. So basically when I came back here, I am a completely dysfunctional human being outside my world. And I thought, oh my God, I got to do something. So I opened up the lab because that's all I can do. I can teach acting. And I'm no good at setting up classes and websites and all that stuff. So I just rented a little place. It was literally around the corner here in Inkerman Street. And a friend of mine who knew me said, Peter, you're not advertising, you're not doing anything. And she literally sent me 20 actors. And I started teaching them for free for like the first 6 months, just till we all figure it out. And that's how it started. And that's what I basically teach what I learned overseas from some great teachers, and I just kind of put it together and started teaching.
And so what made you go, I'm going to stop? Because you were an actor for how many years
I was
before?
an actor. What happened is I went there to study to be an actor, so I was an actor.
Yeah.
But then what I found, even though I love acting, I enjoyed writing.
Yeah.
So I became more of I studied acting and I can teach acting. And as much as I love it, I hated doing it because, call me lazy, I hated getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to some set in the cold. I don't enjoy that part. I love theater, I could do theater.
Yeah.
But writing, I thought, my God, I could write at home at 3 o'clock in the morning in a warm environment. And that's exactly what it came down to.
Yeah.
And when you go to auditions, especially in LA, it's like you see thousands of people there and you go, oh my God, do I really want to be part of this?
Cattle call.
All that stuff, hate it, So I thought, here's the knowledge, I can share the knowledge, but at the same time, this is why I don't want to teach writing. Because I still write and get involved with scripts. And if I teach it, then it becomes kind of like a job and you burn yourself out. Where acting, I don't care to be an actor ever again. It's okay with me. I don't get burnt out. The different categories.
Yeah, great.
So that's what happened.
Nice.
That's how it started.
So when talking about LA, what do you feel like is the major differences between the LA scene and the Australian scene? Because there are a lot.
If I had to narrow it down to one word, it would be collaboration. And it's funny, my darling wife, who's an accountant, of all things, we were driving once and we were in the car here in Melbourne, and she goes, they don't share the knowledge here. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, in the accounting world, they don't share the knowledge. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she goes, well, if I, as an accountant, put my right hand first and then my second hand, I tell the other accountant, when you do this tax return, this is how you should do it. She goes, we share the knowledge. And I said, it's exactly the same in our world. Here, we actually think we're being collaborative.
Yeah.
But it's night and day to LA. And I think one of the big reasons is LA is known as a film town. That's their world. So you help everyone as much as you can. If you hear someone doing a film across the street and they need a red car, you'll ask 1,000 friends, who's got a red car for this film? And they will do it.
Yeah, right.
So there's more collaboration in that respect. You do everything you can for a project, whether you're in it or not. Here we talk about it. But good luck getting, 50 extras on a short film with no money.
Oh, yeah.
In LA, you'll get them in a heartbeat.
That's true.
Because of, and the other thing that I notice, and I'm quite vocal about this, this is why no one returns our calls. No one returns your calls here.
Oh my gosh, yes!
I have proved this to many people. I can sit here, and we called 3 foreign casting agents, people I've never spoken to, 1 in New York, 2 in LA, and we did the same here. People I've never spoken to. Hi, I'm an acting teacher. I got an actor. You should see him for this role. All 3 in LA got back to us within 24 hours, said thank you. One of them actually responded, said, wow, give us his stuff. No contact prior. Here, I'm not kidding you, no one. Wow. And I confronted one of them and I said, why didn't you? And they go, oh, we're busy, whatever. I go, great, whatever. The point is, and it's not ego, if someone calls you that's been doing this for 1,000 years and they've got a school and they say, it's not like I call people every single day. You don't become a soccer person, so to speak. But they talk, that's what I'm saying. You share the information. If I got a good actor, you should be aware of them.
Yeah. That's
sharing the information. And because also it's a business over there and the rewards are bigger because there's more money involved, it's in their right to pay attention and listen to everyone, from everyone. One great casting agent said to me many years ago, her name was Gail Levin. She used to work for Paramount. She's kind of retired now. And she was not just a casting agent. She said to me once, she corrected me, she goes, I'm a casting associate. And I said, what's the difference? And she goes, I just cast the top 2 things. Like she did Minority Report. She goes, I just cast Tom Cruise and whatever. Then people below me do all the other stuff. And I said to her, one day someone called her out of the blue, and she goes, here's the deal. This actress called me out of the blue. She goes, for her to approach me, she knows who I am, so she better not burn that bridge on nothing. So if she's got the balls to approach me and say, please look at me, I will respect that. If you're no good, you're never getting in the door again.
Yeah, right.
But she goes, I'm open to people just calling me cold saying, can you see me?
Interesting.
But if you burn that bridge once,
that's it.
That's
yeah,
it.
That's
so
great.
you've really got to make sure you call and get that information across. That doesn't happen here.
No, it really doesn't.
It
In
doesn't.
fact, I have definitely seen on a lot of casting directing websites or like agency websites, do not call us, do not do this. The only way we can communicate is via email. Also, don't expect to get a response.
Don't expect to get a response.
That's very classic in
It's classic.
Australian
Where in
industry,
LA,
isn't
they'll
it?
open up, they'll share the information, they'll say, hey, I need to get a hold of this. Or they actually listen to what they call on the street. They'll talk to people and they'll say, hey, does anyone know? They'll talk about I remember once, it was at the studio, someone called someone. The guy used to work in an ice cream shop in New York at wintertime. No one buys ice cream in New York at wintertime. But they called him for literally 3 lines in a film that had Al Pacino in it. And Al Pacino knew him because he was at the studio and he did some plays there. And someone said, you got to get this guy. And he got the job. This would never happen here.
There is such a rush in this process because people are so concerned about, wrapping on time, budgets not going over. And yeah, I wonder if it sacrifices quality at times
I think it does. I wrote a polite letter. I don't remember his name, but he was the head of, could have been Showcast.
eCast.
Could have been Showcast. It was one of these Australian government bodies.
Yeah.
And they were talking about a film called Patty Cakes. And there's a young Australian actress in it, I forgot her name. She was in Sydney and she couldn't get arrested, nothing could happen. And then she moved to LA and they worked with her for 9 months, no pay. They said to her, you're very right for the role. You don't have the role yet. And they don't lead you on there.
Yeah.
They say, here's what you need to do. You need to become street. So she went to the ghettos and became street. You need to work on this, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. And they kept on working with her. So 9 months later, after they'd spent time rehearsing with her and getting her opinions and saying, we're interested in you enough. Like I see you in the film, let's say, great, let's spend 6 months on this, exploring the character.
Yeah.
So then they recorded it. And I think at Sundance, the film sold for like $8 or $9 million.
Wow.
Up front, meaning we're going to buy it for $9 million, we can distribute it, we know we'll get our money back. And some banana here said, isn't it amazing at what things happen at film festivals? And I said, no, that's what film festivals are for.
Yeah.
What you should have said, as the representative of this big government body of Australia, as a filmmaker, isn't it amazing what happens when you give actors 9 months to work on a character and guide them? Then you can sell your product. Because if you give an actor 2 weeks, all they got time to is memorize lines.
Yeah.
And maybe, don't forget, most people aren't doing this as a day job, so they've got to quit their day job and find time and get on with life. You give them 2 weeks, maybe. All they can do is memorize lines, get into character, and then you get a product that you're not going to sell for $8 or $9 million.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
Thank you. We'll see you again.
In future shows, we'll be joined by Charlotte Watson, who'll be giving us the scoop on the theatre scene. She's a good friend and co-collaborator of mine, and we've got her on the phone right now. So, hey, Char.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
So, Char, give us a little insight into who is Charlotte Watson. What are you about? What do you do? What is your connection with the theatre world?
Wow, oh my gosh, that's a lot. So my background is in acting. I studied at the University of Wollongong. A lot of my world revolves around the theatre, as I now have a job working as a theatre programmer. But going back to the very beginning, it started with acting and then moving to Melbourne, working as a professional actor. I then got a job as a talent agent. So I saw the other end of the industry from that perspective. From there, I then went into being a theatre programmer for the Alex Theatre, and I've been developing programs there. I also have a production company with you, Sham. We have our company, which is Crowded Together Productions. We have successfully completed 2 performances, one for the Melbourne Fringe and one for Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Both went really, really well. Yeah, that's pretty much my background in theatre and arts.
So, Charlotte, what can we expect from you in upcoming episodes?
Well, I'll be interviewing lots of people that are involved in theatre. I'll also be talking about what my role is in the theatre world and how young producers can be approaching theatres if they want to be putting on performances, how to negotiate contracts, and lots of other really interesting behind-the-scenes scoops.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear it. Thanks so much, Shar.
Thank you.
That's all from us this week. If you want to hit us up or say hello, send us an email at ideas@studioemedia.com.au. See you next time.